boogeyman is coming.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
We have eternity to know your flesh.
Piss your pants. I said, piss your pants. I think we just picked up Dracula.
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
You go right on your...
Stay when you're down here with me. You blood soul! My family's always been in me.
The whole family of Draculas.
So horror movies, it's been a minute, but I am back with John Thorne, and we are finally going to talk about Halloween. How you doing, John?
Yes, sir. I'm here. I'm locked down like everybody else, bored out of my mind, but I did have an excuse to watch my Halloween Blu-ray today, so.
Ooh, you got the Blu-ray.
I got that set when it came out. I was an ex-girlfriend got it for me as a birthday present. You know,
Nice.
like when they came out with that ultimate collection, and it had a producer's cut of The Curse of Michael Myers finally released for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's why I wanted it, because I always wanted to see that, and I would never pull the trigger on buying like the bootleg of it or the work print at Cinema Wasteland.
Yeah.
So I was like, I really want this set because I want to see the producer's cut of Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. And then, I've seen all those movies a fucking million times, but I busted it out today, and I watched it when I got home from work, so it was kind of fresh in my brain.
Well, there's a few versions of Halloween, and we'll get to that. Does the Blu-ray have all of them, or does it just have the original cut?
It does have all of them, and I didn't watch. I think it has all of them, but I didn't watch the television version, but I watched the scenes from the television version today, so those are fresh too.
You're a step up on me. I've never seen the scenes for the television version. I just know they exist.
Well, I guess I'll just say this part now. Like, so I discovered Halloween, like, I thought the television version was like all that there was, because I saw it on like, I don't know, like Channel 43 or Big Chuck and Little John or something, like on just regular old television. So, I was like, I always thought like, I'd never had the experience of like, why is he killing? Because in the scenes for television, they really lay out that it's, that their brother and sister, like that, they go with that storyline. And today I discovered they did that because Halloween 2 was in production. So they filmed those scenes at the same time that they were filming Halloween 2. And that was the storyline for Halloween 2. So they, since it was going to, like, I guess when they filmed it, it was because it was going to air on like network television, NBC in prime time. So they filmed all these scenes that they're really pointless. But one big one is like they make it apparent that they're brother and sister. So that was the only version I saw forever, as a young kid or whatever. And then when I finally bought Halloween on VHS, none of that was in there. So I was like, is this the same movie? I was very confused because I always was under the impression that, they were always brother and sister and all this other stuff. Because there's like all these weird extra scenes because it wasn't long enough for the 2-hour time slot on NBC after they edited things out like nudity. So I really dove deep into that today when I was like, you know what, like when did they film that? Why did they film that? And that was one of the facts that I had prepared for this podcast was, they did it basically because they needed to fill time for NBC. That's the only reason why those scenes were shot. And John Carpenter actually filmed them, directed those shots, even though he didn't direct Halloween 2.
Yeah, which is pretty fucking crazy. That, like, oh hey, here, show up for this, film this shit, and then okay, I'm done.
It was like, because I don't know why, but today I was like, like, why did that happen? And I started like doing a deep dive on Google today and YouTube, and I found out that it was because they needed to fill time for the television rights on NBC, because they were using it as a promotional tool because the sequel was going to come out that year.
And like, imagine that, because now that would never even be a thing. Like, NBC would never show a movie like Halloween. Like, it would be like if NBC was like, hey, we want to show Get Out, but we want a version of Get Out that's okay for television. Can you make that for us? Oh, you can't? Okay.
Well, Stacy, I don't know if you're aware, but the Get Out plays quite often on basic cable in a fully edited version, and
really?
It is a weird movie. It is on like TNT all the time.
I had no idea. I don't ever watch TV.
I mean, I didn't until like COVID hit.
Right.
Like, I bought like Fubo TV, like a streaming live service, which is just like I should just have fucking cable with every streaming service I have at this point. But I don't know, that edited Get Hard is on basic cable all the time.
That's wild. There's a Get Out on basic cable.
Yeah, I mean, they let a little bit slide, but it's, they show it at like 2 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. You can't be getting too loose with it. But
right.
But like, it's crazy that they only shot these scenes just for the television rights, like just for NBC. Like, otherwise, like, they wouldn't have had a 2-hour movie to sell, in syndication.
Movie of the week, Halloween.
It's crazy.
Because I feel like anytime I saw it was like, I either saw it on VHS, I would assume, or maybe I saw it on like HBO or something. But I never saw the TV version. Like, I only ever saw the real deal.
Dude, that's all I saw for years. And then, when I'm like, I don't know, like 14 or something, at Blockbuster, I had some money. I was like,
yeah.
I'm buying this. I was probably with Matt Wadsworth, honestly. And I was like, I'm buying this on VHS, And then, like, it was just like, this is just like a totally different movie to me.
Dude, and it had a couple of releases on VHS too. Like, it had the original media. Like, I feel like almost every horror movie came out on that media label for a long time. And I used to have the media version VHS of Halloween just because it was
worth some money right now.
It is, and I feel like an asshole because I'm sure I just gave it to somebody at some point. Like, oh, I have the DVD of this. Here I have my VHS.
That's the craziest thing about like modern society is like, it's just like, it's like fucking, Biff Tannen with the fucking book and Back to the Future. It's like, could you imagine, like, before we started recording, like we were talking about Toy Hio, could you imagine just like all the shit that is like you had as a kid that is just like a gold mine right now that was just like thrown away, or like your parents just sold at a yard sale or something, like I was walking around Toy Hio and I was like, had that. And like the same thing goes for all these like weird VHS releases of horror movies. Like, I had some weird like Nightmare on Elm Street, like double VHS tape version, like with all these special features on it. It's probably worth a ton of money.
Yeah.
Because, and it's like, just imagine if you would have just like saved everything, you wouldn't even have to have a job right now.
Yeah, there's so much shit I had as a kid. Like, I have a very specific memory of one Christmas getting the same Star Wars playset from 3 different like family members. It was like the little.
You'd be rich. Rich.
It was like this little Jabba the Hutt playset that I could have, if I had any kind of like correct guidance, or if I was like a smart little kid, I would have been like, well, I have 3 of this. I should put these other 2 away. Fuck no. I opened all 3 of them. I was like, oh, it means I have 3 Jabbas. This rules.
And like,
oh, such a dumb move.
Parents in the 80s never in a million years thought any of this shit would be worth any money. You know, like nobody collected shit, like they just went to work and they smoked cigarettes and they drank, and that's all they cared about.
They were
And,
like, oh, this plastic I bought for my kid to keep him busy, that isn't worth shit.
right.
Beat it up.
And not to get off topic here, but like my grandma, like she's like 81 years old, and I drove by her house one day and all this shit is like on her lawn for the garbage day in the morning.
Oh.
And I'm like, what's this? And she was just like, oh, well, just so nobody has to do it, whenever I pass away, I just like had somebody go up and clear out the attic. And I was like, did you check to see if any of this stuff is worth money? She's like, no, I mean, what would be worth money? It's been in an attic forever. And I was just like, what?
Oh.
Like, and I was like, my OCD had to walk away because I would have been out there until 4:00 in the morning. But like,
right,
I was
going
just like,
through everything. Like,
I was just like, oh man, like there's just so much stuff that's worth money that nobody would even imagine. But I had at least probably 2 versions of Halloween on VHS. I don't know if I had the one you're talking about. I definitely had like the Blockbuster exclusive one. I know that, like,
yeah, the one from like 95. Yeah.
Probably, where they would be like, Blockbuster would do that, like, this is our exclusive movie, and like Blockbuster was such a brand that like you wanted to get that one. I remember specifically buying it though at a Blockbuster video, and being a little like shocked that like and confused that this was not the movie that I was familiar with.
Yeah, that Blockbuster version was put out like a few years before the first DVD release. That Blockbuster.
DVDs weren't even like thought of when I bought this. Like that wasn't even like a dream.
Yeah, that commemorative was like 95. It was like at the end of like towards those dying days of VHS,
right?
Where DVD was around the corner.
Yeah, but like nobody knew it was coming. You know what I mean? Like,
no.
VHS held on for a long time.
Dude, VHS survived Laserdisc. Like, yeah. Laserdisc existed and died, and VHS was like, nope, still going.
Yeah, I mean, and I know a guy. He goes to like all the horror cons and stuff. His name is Colin. He only buys shit on VHS. Like, and he'll be like, he has like one of those impeccable memories where he'd be like, I saw this movie in 1994, and I've been looking for it, and I found it for $1. And like, it's like VHS does so well at all these horror conventions. It's crazy.
Yeah, dude, I remember having friends that like started actively collecting VHS like in the early mid 2000s. And I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, VHS looks terrible. Like, there's a digital transfer of this movie. Just buy a DVD. It's great. And they're like, oh no, man, I want this version of it.
Some people they like that look. You know what I mean? They're like, yeah, there's something about it. Do you have the Shout channel, like the streaming channel?
Yeah.
It's like Shout. They like upload like VHS streams sometimes. It'll be like, this is the VHS render of Night of the Demons or something. Like, it's I mean it's cool. It's a gimmick. It's also so strange when you could just see it, everything so nice and clear,
Yeah. And you know what's crazy to me is like, so like I made really low budget horror movies with my friends for a few years. And I remember how excited we were that somebody wanted to make the movies that we were putting out on shitty VHS out on DVD. Like, and we were like, oh my God, there's going to be a DVD version of this fucking movie we made.
Right.
And the shit that anybody ever contacts us about now is like, do you guys have a VHS? Do you have any of the VHS you used to make yourselves and sell? Like, nobody gives a shit about those DVDs.
Yeah, it's
they
weird.
Want
like
the VHS.
I joke with Smart Mark Video all the time about how we got to do like a VHS like release of something, like just for like nostalgia, those weird nostalgic people. But
dude, if you do it as a limited, because that's the other thing is you have to do it as a limited release.
It's got to be limited. It's got to be numbered. Like there's a science to this whole thing. It's going to be 1 of 7. And that's all there's going to be.
And there's only going to be 4 of them that are blue VHS tapes.
Yeah, it's so weird. But I mean, yeah, that's kind of my introduction to Halloween was the television version. So I was so confused for so many years, and now I'm very familiar with it. But I wanted that answer. I wanted to know when they made that and why they made those scenes, and I got my answers today.
That is the answer to it. So Halloween 1978, the original version, original title Babysitter Murders.
I mean, I have that in my notes too because it's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, so I get so John Carpenter. In doing my research, I found a couple of quotes from him that are just in hindsight kind of silly. But he talked about how
before you get to that though, I think that the big thing that people need to know if they're unfamiliar is this was not John Carpenter's idea. Somebody came to him and said, "Hey, I want to make a movie called The Babysitter Murders," and he was like, "Okay, I guess."
Erwin Eblins.
Yablans or something. They always say it I was watching it's like Yablans. It's some weird pronunciation.
Go. Yeah, his last name starts with a Y. Yablans.
I think it's Yablans because I watched a couple Halloween fact videos today on YouTube, and they kept saying that.
I did too much Spanish pronunciation with his last name.
I think it's Yablans. But yeah, he was just like, and I don't know, I think maybe they knew each other from another movie or something, but
he had something to do with the distribution, the European distribution for Assault on Precinct 13.
Okay.
And he also knew Mustafa Akkad, and he basically came to John Carpenter with Mustafa Akkad's money and was like, we want to make a movie. They had seen the success of Black Christmas, and they wanted to make something else in that. And before that, I believe it was Silent Night, Deadly Night, one of the Christmas
horror movies.
Santa horror movies. And their idea was to have another take on that, with a budget of $300,000. The basic premise was given that it was going to be babysitters stalked by a killer, and the idea was floated that there had never been a Halloween movie. John Carpenter said for the story, this story is at this point caused fandom amongst a ton of people in our age group and other age groups.
Oh, it's become a timeless classic, and I'm one of those guys that doesn't really like to dive deep into something. It's just I like this, whatever.
Yeah.
And today I was doing that research, and I was just kind of discovering that John Carpenter was just a hired gun, and he did not really give a fuck about this. I mean, he gave a fuck, but he was just a hired gun for this project. And it's really crazy because it's gone on to be this timeless classic that has just become enamored with by so many different generations. And he was just they were just hey, we want to make this movie called The Babysitter Murders, and he's like, okay, pay me.
Yeah. And so he has this original meeting with Erwin, right? And so there's a quote, and so I did a lot of reference, a lot of research on this. Some of it is long ago, a little peek behind the scenes in this is that John Carpenter episode we recorded 3 months ago.
At least, I don't know. I mean, all the days run together at this point during the COVID-19 era of life.
A lot of things have happened between COVID-19 and tragedies in people's personal lives between then and now.
R.I.P. Again, sorry to hear about your mom.
Thanks, man. It's been a month. I lost my mom. I lost a friend. It's been a thing. So the resources I looked at, there was a documentary called The Shape Lives. I watched that. There's special features on every version I had of Halloween that I could watch. Stuff on YouTube, useless facts that I kind of just know from years of liking horror movies.
Right.
One of the things that stood out to me was John Carpenter saying about Halloween, a movie that has it's made millions and millions of dollars and been a franchise, as he was it was 2 a.m. and I drank a 6-pack of beer and this was the best idea I could think of.
See, I'm sure that I've seen that. I didn't like. I was too like kind of under the gun for my research today, so I was just trying to find like the cliff notes of stuff.
Right.
But I've definitely seen that documentary before, and that sounds familiar. It's just crazy though when you really think about it. It's just like, people. John Carpenter is just like someone that, especially horror fans, they hold in such high regard, and he has kind of just like such like a whatever attitude about stuff. Like
his attitude is basically "fuck you, pay me."
Yeah, and it's like the thing that is, so this is what I found interesting, and I'm sure that you have other quotes and you found probably a little bit more in-depth information on this than I did. But from everything that I gathered today, he was paid $10,000 to write, direct, and score, but the kicker was he asked for 10% of the gross.
Yes, he did.
Which, fuck, man, like talk about scratching a winning lotto ticket.
Fuck yeah. He wanted 10% of the gross, and as we talked about in the episode about John Carpenter, he wanted Final Cut and his name above the title.
He did, and I think, like you just said, it's been a while since we did the John Carpenter episode, but I think even like with that 10% later in life, he like was pissed about not cashing in on the sequels.
So with that 10%, part of his, eventually we'll do Halloween 4, right?
Right.
But that won't matter when we do that episode. We'll rehash this information then. He got the 10%, right? And when he was in talks to do H2O.
That's what it was.
It was H2O. It wasn't Halloween 4. I'd take that back. So when he did H2O, he held up Mustafa Akkad for the money he felt he was owed that he was never paid for his 10% off Halloween. Because he never got his $7 million. Not to get ahead of myself, but so the budget for Halloween, directed by John Carpenter, written by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, produced by Deborah Hill, executive producer Irwin Yablans, financier Mustafa Akkad, music by the Bowling Green Philharmonic, aka John Carpenter, edited by Tommy Lee Wallace, and cinematography by Dean Cundley. Dean Cundley we'll talk about in a little bit. There's a reason this film looks so good, and it's Dean Cundley. But the budget for this film was $300,000. That's in 1978 money. Today it would be about $1.2 million.
Which, people are like, it's like, it's such a low budget movie. I mean, that's a good amount of money, I could do a lot of shit with 1.2 million of today's money. I could do a lot of shit.
Exactly. I could make one hell of a movie for $1 million. I never spent, me and my friends pooling our money together never spent more than $15 grand on a movie.
Yeah, I mean,
we made something that was watchable. We didn't make Halloween, but
I do think that some of that is a little bit sensationalized when talking about Halloween, because when you say $300,000 in 2020, you're like, wow, that's not that much. But 1978, 77, whenever it was filmed,
yeah,
I mean, that's a good amount of money. Do we know where Mustafa Akkad got his money, by the way? Because he's just kind of like a guy that comes out of nowhere, and it's just known for fucking Halloween movies.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is, in the little bit of research I did on Mustafa Akkad, and there's
he was blown up to he was blown up in a bombing. I know that.
He died in a horrific and strange way. On his way to that, and on his way to being the owner of Michael Myers, his goal was to make some movies about the Muslim faith.
Oh.
And he basically did this as it's almost like the plot of the movie Ed Wood, but replace the Christians who let Ed Wood make a horror movie so they can make their movies about Jesus with a guy who made some horror movies to try to make a movie about Muhammad.
Wow. So Halloween was just kind of like a fundraiser. I didn't know that.
Sort of. Yeah. And he eventually did make a movie about Muhammad that I guess was marginally successful in the parts of the world where the Muslim faith is, You know, it was basically like the Passion of the Christ, but for that area of the world.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, he was always a guy that I didn't really look that much into, but I was always really curious about, because it's just like, why is this just like random guy, just like and not only him, like now his like family, you know,
right.
They're just like the driving forces behind Halloween movies.
Yeah. And dude, what's wild to me too is, so like, you've got his family making all this continued money off of Halloween. He made a bunch of money off of Halloween. The film made $70 million in its initial release. That's not like all of the bunch of VHS and DVD and Blu-ray releases.
I mean, like I said, I just bought that Blu-ray was bought for me probably in the last 6 or 7 years, you know, and like they're still coming out with stuff and like getting streaming money. Like Halloween is on Shudder right now. You can stream it on Shudder for all you people out there that have never seen it. Like if you have Shudder, or if you don't, you can get a free trial. You can watch Halloween. You could stream Halloween right now. I mean, this movie has probably been released. I mean, I don't want to say probably the most like different versions of all time, but it has to be up there with how many times this thing has been released and how much money it has made in every form of video media.
Dude, it's made money upon money. And like, that's not counting all of the licensing. Like, so it has one of the most iconic movie posters of all time, designed by Robert Gleason. But that theatrical poster of the hand holding the knife that like turns into the jack-o'-lantern behind it.
Yes.
That's on like t-shirts that are sold at Walmart right now. That's been on t-shirts that have been sold at Hot Topic for 25 years.
There's a Rip City Shooters knockoff of that, I think, too.
Yeah, like everybody's ripped that off. I was in fucking shitty metal bands that ripped that off for like Halloween show flyers for
Mushroom Head probably still uses it.
Right. It's iconic as fuck. And that's just money off of that image, not off the Michael Myers image, which has been turned into toys and masks that aren't a Captain Kirk mask. And like,
oh yeah, the mask. I mean, Halloween licensing, like, you know, like Halloween, like time licensing is probably, I mean, it's insane. You know, the amount of money that this movie has generated. And you're not even talking sequels. You know, you're just talking about, you know, the bare bones stuff that you get in this one.
The original property, yeah. That's not the remakes, which were on sequel remakes were on version 3 of. We've got all those 2 Rob Zombie films. We've got the original run up through Resurrection running off the original film. It's wild, man. Like,
which fuck COVID-19, because now we have to wait a whole year before we get the sequel to the 2018 Halloween.
Dude, in the world of things that COVID has fucked up for me this year, like the one thing I had sat back on this whole time, like, oh, tons of things I love are gone, but I'm gonna get to see this next Halloween movie in October. No, I'm not.
Same. Like, I was just like, okay, like I can't do AIW right now. Like, though everything sucks, there's nothing to do. At least I can go to Halloween Horror Nights in Orlando in October, and at least there's a new Halloween movie coming out to look forward to. And like both got like canceled the same week.
Yep,
and I was just like, oh, okay, cool. Like this year's just a total wash.
Yeah, man, it's awful. Now my only hope is that gives them an extra year to make this movie extra fucking good.
And a guy I know, he was an extra in the movie, so you know I was looking forward to seeing that. He was living somewhere down wherever they're filming in Georgia or something, and he just like showed up and got a job as an extra. I think he was on a gurney or something, and he had to do a scene with Jamie Lee Curtis.
That's awesome.
According to his Facebook, I think. But yeah, I was looking forward to seeing this movie a lot. We're bouncing all over the place, folks, but there's a lot of information. There's a lot of information that comes with Halloween.
So look, this isn't going to be the tightest review of the movie Halloween ever, but it's 2 dudes who really like this movie, and there's a lot of information to go through. So, like, it made $70 million theatrical. Today, that would be $240. John Carpenter real pissed that he doesn't feel like he was paid $7 million for this movie when his original agreement was that, yeah, I get 10% of the film's profits.
So did he had to have gotten something. He just felt that he was shorted,
Right. So
I mean, maybe he feels he's shorted on the, all the extra money though,
That could be. He could have got the $7 million and is like, hold on, where's the rest of my fucking movie money?
Right.
But we know for sure he got 10 grand and then some other amount that is not as much as he feels he was owed.
Which seems like, okay, like, I know we love John Carpenter, but like, I don't mean to motherfuck him this whole episode, but it's like 1978, he's kind of like a hippie. Like 10 grand is probably like so much money for that guy. And like,
yeah,
he still seems to like be like a pretty modest guy. So like, it's kind of crazy that he is such a hired gun on top of it. It's like two conflicting mindsets almost.
So I feel like part of it is the time period wherein he's real pissed about this money. Because I think 1978, hell, I think 1981 John Carpenter isn't sweating the money from Halloween so much. But I feel like early 2000s John Carpenter, like post-Vampires,
post-Village of the Damned or whatever he did.
Yeah, I feel like that dude might be sweating a dollar a little bit harder than what early 80s John Carpenter is.
Yeah,
and I think
made a couple bad purchases.
Yeah, I feel like that dude is the one who's a little pissed. Like, I don't even think current John Carpenter is probably real pissed about that money. I feel like it was just like that window in time, maybe, where it was like.
I think it was like, I think the 90s were like very humbling for him because, he's just knocking hits out in the 80s, you know what I mean? And then like it's just like party's over, dude. Like that's it.
Oh yeah, because I mean. 88 is They Live, and after that shit does not go as well as planned for John Carpenter for a long time. Although I'll tell you, man, one of my biggest regrets is I missed he did that tour.
I was just gonna say that because I was like, man, I kind of want to go see this, and like he had like a meet and greet, and it was like a lot, it was pretty expensive. And I was like, I should do this, but I don't know. Maybe I'll go to the next one. And then there hasn't been a next one.
No, and I don't think there will be. And I know people who went, and I remember seeing their pictures from that show. And like, they went to Pittsburgh, right? And there were wild fucking people in Pittsburgh at that show. Like Slash was at that fucking show, sitting like a row in front of my friend Fred. I was like, this is fucking silly, because he only did like. I don't know how many dates, but it was limited. There weren't like a lot of.
Yeah, I know he did a Cleveland one at the Agora, but I was like, it's just one of those things. Like, I don't know. Like, I really think COVID has put a lot more things in perspective for people, to where it was just like, before you're just like, I'll catch the next one. Now it's just like, well, there might not be a next one, Right. So like. Looking at that through the COVID eyes, it is one of my bigger regrets.
Yeah, it's way up there for me. I wish I would have went. I don't know if it'll ever happen again. I can guarantee you, if it happens again, I'm gonna make the money happen to make sure that I fucking go see it.
Yeah, no doubt, dude, no doubt.
Because John Carpenter's not young these days either.
No, he's up there.
Yeah. So he wrote the script for this movie that he came up with at 2 a.m. on a 6-pack of beer in a week. Him and Deb Hill kicked this thing out in a week, and she wrote most of the female dialogue.
See, I had it. It was written. Something I watched said it was written in 3 weeks today, or said it took about 3 weeks to iron it all out.
Oh, maybe you know what? And that might be true.
Maybe it took a week for the first draft.
Right. And that very well could be true.
I think the final draft was 3 weeks in. And I had another thing about the score. Oh, he wrote the score.
3 days.
3 days. Yeah.
Yeah. And he used Psycho as inspiration.
Yeah, and some like bongo like thing that his dad, because his dad was a music teacher or whatever, like taught him some sort of like something that he used to play in the bongos. He just applied to a piano or a keyboard and a synthesizer.
Right, for the dent. Yeah, it was a pattern from the bongos.
I have, Haddonfield, just I got some of the basic well-known facts, but, somebody out there listening, like young Ed, might not know this stuff. Haddonfield, Illinois is a fictitious town based on where Deborah Hill grew up. Haddonfield, New Jersey, which is a real town. And Smith's Grove, Illinois, is also a fictitious town, but it is based on a town, Smith's Grove, Kentucky, which was near where John Carpenter grew up.
Right, near Bowling Green University.
Yes. Little factoids that I took down today when I was doing my research that I thought were interesting.
I like that you're bringing real research to this, John.
Hey, man, I got literally nothing else to do. So.
So it makes what would be $240 million today. Its budget originally $300,000. The cast was not paid as much as you might think they were.
Oh, I have some of this written down too, actually.
So let's start with Donald Pleasance, because I feel like for as much as like Jamie Lee Curtis is what probably comes to people's mind when they think of Halloween, to me, because of how long he stayed with the series, it's Donald Pleasance playing Loomis.
Right, but he wasn't the first choice.
He sure wasn't.
And there were a lot of guys that turned it down because of the money.
Yeah, including Peter Cushing, who was fresh off Star Wars and a legend in the UK.
Yeah, the Hammer films, right? I haven't seen a lot of those, but I'm aware of them. And there was another Hammer Films guy that was offered it.
Christopher Lee, man. Christopher fucking Lee.
In which he said later that this was the biggest regret of his entire career.
Imagine that. Christopher Lee's biggest regret was not taking this role.
I know him from Gremlins too. That's what I know him from. He's I believe he's the scientist in the lab in Gremlins too.
Yeah. I know Christopher Lee from a bunch of stuff. I like the Hammer films shit, and Christopher Lee was a big part of that. That's a thing that when you're young you don't really, I think, get into unless you're weird, as Hammer films.
I mean, I haven't, I'm like a weird guy about really old stuff, but I'm like, so I haven't even really seen them, but I'm aware of them. But I really find it crazy that those were pretty, well received even in those days. So for this guy to say that turning down Loomis is the biggest regret of his career, that's crazy to me.
Yeah. But Donald Pleasance jumped on it, man, and dove in full bore.
Well, I think there was something about maybe his daughter liked Assault on Precinct 13 or something, and that's why he went with it. And I have conflicting numbers on what he got paid, but they're pretty close.
What are your numbers? Because I have a number in front of me too.
He was either paid $20,000 or $25,000, and he had to shoot in 5 days.
I have $20,000 for 4 to 5 days of shooting.
Yeah, so like some people say 20, some people say 25, and it was 5 days of shooting. Like he was in and out, like which is crazy to think about, like how efficient this movie is made.
Right, because he's all over the place. Like his scenes are at the mental hospital in the car, then back at the mental hospital walking out the next day, then all over Haddonfield with Michael Myers and without. Like that's a testament to John Carpenter efficiently shooting a movie, that he was there for 4 or 5 days. He's the secondary main character of the movie, and all of his shit was done in 5 days.
I would obviously not now, but maybe when we do one of the other like later Halloween sequels, I would love to know if it's out there what his salaries were for the later ones, because I know everyone says Jamie Lee Curtis is obviously the face next to Michael Myers. But like Donald Pleasance is like the face of the series next to Michael Myers, the whole franchise.
Yeah, and even continuing into 2018 Halloween, because there's the references to Loomis in that with fake Loomis.
Right. And I think that he would have had to have, made some cash in some of those later ones. Obviously more than $20,000.
For sure. Because those also weren't like, I think there's a little bit of a misconception with some of those Halloween movies that they were sort of like straight to video or straight to cable stuff. And it's just because of where we saw those movies at that time.
Yeah, but they were released.
Yeah.
They were, and Donald Pleasance scored so much more work in other John Carpenter films. So, like maybe that's why, Christopher Lee regrets it so much, because this pretty much like put Donald Pleasance was on the map as like a character actor, but like this put him on the map. He got his face in so many hit movies and cult movies because of taking this 5 days of work.
Right. Now, in fairness, I think it taught Christopher Lee a lesson, because later on in his life, he didn't turn down Lord of the Rings. And that had to make him just fucking silly money in later years. But it's crazy just to think, like $20,000 for 5 days, and it like turns into a career for this guy. Right. And so I like to do, because $20,000 is deceptive when you talk about it in 1977, 78 money. It'd be like $80,000 now. 79, $80,000. That's good. It's pretty good money, but it's not what you would think of like movie money, Right. Yeah. Jamie Lee Curtis made substantially less money than Donald Pleasance. I saw some of that too. $8,000. That's what I had. $8,000, and she had to buy her own wardrobe. The whole cast had to buy their own wardrobe pretty much. There was no wardrobe budget. And she had to spend like $200 at JCPenney, so she had stuff to wear in the movie. Yeah, spending $200 at Penny's so you can be in a movie. She wasn't the first choice either. There's an interview. I had to piece this information together from a couple of interviews, because Jamie Lee Curtis isn't a shitty person and she didn't want to put people on blast, I don't think. But she wasn't the original pick. There was somebody who apparently she had auditioned against for a bunch of other roles and lost all of those other roles too, who nobody will know who the fuck this person is, because when I finally pieced together who it was, I went, who? Yeah. It was like, I think like the thing that she was known the most for was like Battlestar Galactica or something. Yeah. Annie Lockhart. Yeah. Was the person who was the original like front runner to be Laurie. And one of the things that sold John Carpenter on Jamie Lee Curtis was that her mom was Janet Leigh and she had been in Psycho. And Deb Hill really pushed that idea that like, oh, well, there's the marketing of her mom being Janet Leigh and this being a horror movie. And that opened the door for Jamie. But $8,000 then, $32,000 now. Look at what that turned into for Jamie Lee Curtis, because I can assure you that paid dividends on H2O and the new one. Plus, and Resurrection. Plus, like, this launches her entire career, just like Donald Pleasance in a way, Oh, even more than Donald Pleasance, because she didn't have any career before this. Right. And all of a sudden, she's like in A Fish Called Wanda and like True Lies and all the like her whole career happens because she made the choice to be in Halloween. And I mean, it doesn't take off right away, but I mean, she's a Hollywood A-lister now. Absolutely. When she's not doing yogurt commercials, man, she's making movies that make money. And like a personal memory of mine, which for many people who are listening to this podcast, this is going to be from a time that you don't remember because you were probably kids. But like when cell phones became a thing that people had all the time and weren't like shit for just rich people, cell phone ringtones were a big thing. Yeah. And people would pay dumb money for a ringtone, right? And I specifically remember Jamie Lee Curtis being on Conan O'Brien and her phone ringing, and it rang the theme from Halloween, and my mind was fucking blown. I was like, I need a cell phone that plays the ringtone from Halloween.
Yeah, but it was like a MIDI. Like it was like it wasn't even like the real song. It was just like noises.
Yeah, it was just like 8-bit fucking Nintendo game noises of the Halloween song. Yep. And I paid like $4 for that shit.
Oh, no doubt.
I was like, this is something that's real. I can fucking buy this. Okay, I'm doing that. That needs to happen.
On like a big ass Nokia phone.
Yeah, big clunky fucking played Snake and made phone calls and had that ringtone.
That's funny.
So the rest of the cast, Mike Myers, probably not the SNL comedian, not star of Wayne's World, but Michael Myers, is the next biggest character in the movie. He is played by 6 fucking people.
Yeah, I had between 4 and 5 people, but the main guy was Nick Castle, but he's played by a bunch of other people, like stuntmen. When he kills the dog, he's got to be played by a special dog guy.
Yep.
Tommy Lee Wallace plays him. Like, there's a bunch of different people.
Yeah, so Nick Castle is the main character that is the shape that is Michael Myers. Nick was paid $25 a day.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I learned that today, and I was like, that is just insane.
I did the math. 17 days playing Michael Myers at $25 a day gave him $425 or $1,700 to be Michael Myers.
That is insane. I mean, I'm sure, he's made money doing conventions and other things, but I mean, that's crazy.
I promise you that motherfucker has made more money at a chiller weekend signing autographs as Michael Myers than he did playing Michael Myers.
That's crazy.
Tommy Lee Wallace was the closet scene Michael Myers and some other special effects shots because he understood, because Tommy Lee Wallace, spoilers, goes on to make some other Halloween movies. He understood where the shots needed to be and the way Mike needed to be for those shots. So he was there in those. Jim Winburn was the stunt guy. Tony Moran was mask off Mike. Will Sandin was child Mike on that long pull out shot that's weird.
And Deborah Hill played the hand or something.
Yeah,
when he was a kid.
She's the hand, yeah. But Tommy Lee Wallace was one of John Carpenter's friends who ended up. So was Nick Castle. He just had his college buddies there, and I guess Nick Castle was just hanging around, and he convinced him to just play the part. Yeah, and so Tommy Lee Wallace wrote Escape from New York. He wrote Hook. He directed The Last Starfighter and the Damon Wayans classic Major Payne.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good 90s classic.
A Major Payne connection for Halloween.
Bam Bigelow.
Yeah. Man, that guy. How was that guy not used by more places and more things? Of all the dudes in wrestling history that had a unique, weird look, Bam Bam's way up that list. How was he not a thug in every post-apocalyptic movie that was made in the fucking 80s and 90s?
He's just in Major Payne, I think, and that's it. I don't know how he wasn't just in more character parts.
Bam Bam's the best, man. I'm a big Bam Bam Bigelow fan.
Oh, no doubt. Same.
So then there's the 2 girls who are Laurie's friends. You've got PJ Souls playing Linda, and you've got Nancy Keys playing Annie,
who was Tommy Lee Wallace's wife.
Correct.
That's how she got the part, I think.
Yeah, and she had been in Assault on Precinct 13. She falls into that thing where John Carpenter finds people he likes and puts them in a bunch of movies.
Right.
She's in Halloween 2 for a minute. She's in The Fog. She's in Assault on Precinct 13. She's the only, Nancy Keys, fun fact, only actress that's in all of the first 3 films, because she's in Halloween 3 as well.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. That is an interesting fact.
Now, here's something that blows my mind. Also, PJ Souls, takes a really weird route to this movie. She was in Carrie before she was in this.
Right.
She got her role in Carrie because she did a joint audition for De Palma and George Lucas where they were casting Carrie and Star Wars, which that fact alone is fucking weird to me.
At the same time, like a joint casting? That's insane.
Yeah. So she was at the same time auditioning for Carrie and to be Princess Leia, which is just fucking weird. And this is all before she did the role that she's best known for in Rock and Roll High School. Now, Rock and Roll High School comes after Halloween. She's playing a high school student in Halloween. How old do you think PJ Souls was in Halloween?
Oh, I mean, she's got to be at least mid-20s.
28.
Wow.
She was born in 1950. She is 28 in Halloween.
That's crazy.
Nancy Keys is a year older than her.
Yeah, so I something I read today said Jamie Lee Curtis was the only legit teenager in the whole movie.
Absolutely. Everybody else is either a child or an adult.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So there's one other actor that plays a big part in this movie, and that's Charles Cyphers, who plays Sheriff Lee Brackett, Annie's dad. He's another Carpenter regular. He did that weird Elvis movie that Carpenter did. He did The Fog. He did Halloween 2. But he played a role in a movie that as I looked through his IMDb, I went, oh shit, really? That's the same guy? He was in a movie that means so much to me as a guy who loves everything about Cleveland and grew up in I grew up in Youngstown, but if you grow up in Youngstown, you're either a Pittsburgh guy or a Cleveland guy, and I was a Cleveland guy. Major League is a fucking very important movie to me. And that dude is Charlie Donovan.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
He's the other guy in my favorite scene from that movie of, how would you like to be the coach of the Cleveland Indians? I don't know. Can I get back to you? I got a guy on the other line about some white walls.
I mean, he looks, I just looked it up and it's just like, it looks like a completely different person. That's crazy.
Yeah, dude, Charlie fucking Donovan is, everybody's entitled to a scare on Halloween. Same fucking dude. Unreal.
That is crazy. Okay. All right. That is a good connection to Cleveland. I mean, everybody, you can't not love that movie if you're from Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, I mean, this ain't about Major League, but man, everybody should like Major League. If you like horror movies, don't like horror movies, like sports, fucking hate sports, there's no reason to not like Major League.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's crazy. I didn't know that, because like the only thing that, like, because he has such a recognizable voice, and like the only thing I remember him from is like Carpenter movies.
Yeah, dude, and he's Charlie Donovan. Blew my fucking mind.
It's crazy.
So, man, do you have favorite scenes in this movie?
I don't know. Like, I really just like the whole thing. I mean, to be honest, like it sounds kind of crazy. It's not a scene per se, but we have to talk about just the iconic opening credits with the pumpkin and the music, the jack-o'-lantern. It's just like, when you see that, I don't know, it just does something, and like,
I
to
agree.
me, that's like one of the, like, probably one of the most overlooked things in the movie, but it's just so iconic. And they replicate it in a different way for Halloween 2, but when I put it on today, and I was just like, man, like, this just makes me feel some kind of way. Just like there's just something about that opening. I don't think it gets appreciated enough. And it kind of just sets the tone for the whole movie, honestly. I love the opening. Like, if you really break down the movie, like, you can find a lot of stuff that probably doesn't make sense or whatever. But I think when you just, like, watch that opening scene, the opening credits roll, like you just like kind of strap in and you're just like you're in for the ride at that point on.
I agree. Like that opening sets the tone for this movie, and it feels so weird because it's clearly just a real pumpkin. Like a real jack-o'-lantern,
right?
With the titles being splashed in front of it, and there used to be rules to movies where there had to be opening credits in a certain way, and this kind of followed that, and that was a thing that held true for a lot of the directors that John Carpenter grew up as a big fan of.
Right.
So it makes sense that he found a way to do that and make it interesting and not just make it like, like old cowboy movies where it would just be like a fucking matte painting of some Western skyline with all of these boring ass credits that roll over it.
Right.
He found a way to make it interesting and like build the suspense that you were about to see, like, oh, what's going to fucking happen after this. Right.
Yeah. I really think it sets the tone. Like I really do. Like that's the first thing when I put it on today, and I was just like, man, like I don't know, like, and especially people that have seen Halloween 1,000 times, like you can just have it on and know what's gonna happen. You don't even have to look at the screen. But like when you watch those opening credits, it's like I don't know, it's like, man, like it just makes you feel like it's fall outside. Like I don't know, there was just something about it today when I watched it, and I was like, this is something that is just so overlooked in this as a integral part of this entire movie.
Well, and you mentioned the idea that it makes you feel like it's fall outside, and it's amazing to me. Like I have watched some things where people shit on the fact that like, oh, it was filmed in California and there's a scene or two where you can see palm trees in the background. You have to really be looking for that though. Dude, you really do. Because I've watched this movie forever, and it feels like one of the things that I love about this movie is it captures the feeling to me of fall in the Midwest.
Right. Like the only gripe that I have, and the only gripe that I have is like it's not dark. It's not getting dark at fucking 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. Like that's the only gripe that I have. Like in that after school time of the movie before
right.
they go to their, but like,
and the leaves are
that,
still, the leaves are still too green.
Yeah.
That's the only other thing, but you don't notice it if you're not thinking about it.
Right. Like people that think about that are fucking assholes. I'm just going to say it, and like they're assholes. Like they're looking for something to hate about it. And it's just like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like when I watch that, I live in a place with every season. When I watch Halloween, it feels like fall to me, no matter what the temperature is outside. And today I was like, I got like this weird fall feeling. I don't care that if you look really close and zoom in, you can see a palm tree at the like off in the the background, like that's a centimeter big. You know what I mean? Like who gives a shit?
You know where I didn't see that? On my 19-inch TV where I first watched this fucking movie. Exactly. Like people that look for that shit are assholes. Like seriously, like it's just there's other things that you can find wrong with this movie, but that ain't it. I have a list of them, and none of them are the fucking palm tree. I can assure you that. And I love this movie. So keep in mind that when I get to the part of this where I'm like, there's some shit wrong with this movie, it's out of love. It's not out of like...
I mean, we could just get into it now. Like, there's plenty of stuff that is chronologically a little off or, but nobody cares, like you only care about that because you've watched it so many times and like you love it. And then you start to like go, like you think deeply about it, but the majority of people that have seen this movie are taking it at face value for what it is, and it is a very good suspenseful horror movie.
Absolutely. And so like this week I watched it all the way through, and it is probably, and this is not an exaggeration, probably like the 50th or so time I've seen this movie. I've watched this movie a lot. There's a couple of things I want to touch on before we get to the bad shit, because it's its own section. Half of the budget for this movie, so it was $300,000. He spent about half of it on the cameras, the processing of the film, and the Steadicam / Panaglide, which hadn't been used a lot. It was still pretty new technology, and I feel like he took big advantage of it. Like, it was like real forward thinking of John Carpenter to be like, look, there's this newer technology. I want to use it. I have this vision for what this could be. And it plays in from the very open of the movie all the way through into later in the movie. Where
and if you are a Halloween smart, like Mark person or whatever you want to call it, super fan of Halloween, and you've watched any interview with John Carpenter, like, this guy loves the Panaglide. And he will let everybody know.
Fuck yeah. Loves the shit out of it. And with good reason. It's one of the best inventions. It's one of the most revolutionary inventions in film that happened between the 70s and the 90s. Like, it changed shit dramatically. It made tracking shots not need a literal track on the ground that the camera rode on that you then had to hide.
Right. Like, and if they don't use this movie is 100% different.
What? Absolutely. It wouldn't even resemble the same film. John Carpenter is not above stealing a good idea either. Like, so I've seen a couple of places where, like, if you don't know, you don't know. And Halloween's one of the most important films of all time. So I understand why people would associate this with maybe this being the first instance of it, but it's not. He lifted the killer's view from Bob Clark. Bob Clark used that in Black Christmas first. Black Christmas, earlier episode of this show, covered Black Christmas because I feel like it's like the first important horror film of the 70s. But like the killer's view thing was absolutely a Black Christmas thing that John Carpenter was aware of and took and used, but used it in a different way and used it in a better way.
Yeah, I was just going to say that he figured out a way to use it so much better.
Absolutely. He didn't just lift it to steal it. He lifted it with an idea of like using it artistically in a different way. And I think that's something that gets lost sometimes in what would regularly be considered exploitation film, is that there's still, like, you can be poor and still have an artistic vision. Like,
right. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of those people, I would say, might have a better artistic vision because they were working with way less. Absolutely.
I agree 100%. But that was something that was lifted. Another thing I want to touch on is, in the spirit of poor filmmaking, and I don't mean poor in quality, I mean poor in budget, the entire production of this movie was housed in a fucking RV. Like,
I did not know that.
Wardrobe, makeup, all that shit was in one RV. The catering were friends of John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. And they hunted out, the house that they use in this movie that's the old Myers house?
Yes.
That looked like a piece of shit?
There's really a good
reason. Yeah, it was a piece of shit house. It was an abandoned house that needed fixed up.
It was owned by like a church or something. Like a local church owned it.
Yeah, and part of the reason they were able to get it was because that group knew they had to fix it up some to film the later scenes in the movie that are flashback to the... Yeah, flashback to like the opening scenes, right? So they knew the house was going to get fixed up some if they let these people film a horror movie there. And they used that to their advantage, which is I can appreciate because my friends and I rented what used to be clearly a crack house in Youngstown to film one of our movies once. And I totally understand the idea behind it. It's like, you can't find a house that's fucked up unless you go find a house that's fucked up.
I mean, it's very true, Like, I mean, it makes it look so much more authentic.
Yeah, because it is.
Exactly.
It's genuinely a piece of shit. The other thing is, so I asked you about your favorite shots, and it's because I have a couple. And one of my favorites is the beginning.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's without question. You know, like I think that whole long walk, you know, and I guess that kind of ties in with, you know, the opening credits. You know, like you go from that into that kind of like, you know, the Panovision or Panoglide. You know, like it's, you know, I mean, there's no way that you can like this film and not love that shot.
And like, so in addition to being that Panaglide shot, forever and until I did my research for this, even so, I'm years and years, decades into loving this movie and thinking I knew a lot about it. I thought that opening shot was one continuous tracking shot.
No, I think he says in the commentary with Jamie Lee Curtis that there's a cut in it.
There is when they put the mask on.
But it's very subtle.
Yep, when he puts the mask on and it goes to the eye holes in the mask for the rest of it, with the weird arm coming out of the side stabbing at her and the really early titties in the movie. Like, this movie opens to like basically like within minutes you've got nudity. That's a cut. There's actually a cut when that mask goes over the camera, and it's so seamless.
Yeah, because I was under that impression for a very long time, and I want to say maybe 2 Halloweens ago, like, you know, 2 Octobers ago, I had that Blu-ray on, but I had the commentary track on. I was like doing stuff around my house, and he said that there was a cut in it. And I'm almost positive that's where I heard it, and I was shocked. Yeah,
that's where I picked it up from too, was commentary where he was like, yeah, this actually isn't a continuous shot. There's a cut right here. And it's like, it's seamless. Fucking seamless. The other scene that I love in that movie, and I know it has to be because I'm a wrestling fan and a fan of a specific dude who I'm a fan of his wrestling, maybe not him as a person these days.
Oh, I know what you're going for.
I'm a big Undertaker fan from when I was a kid.
You're going for the sit-up?
Yeah, that's 100%. Like, Big Mark has to be a Halloween fan, right?
Well, like, and I thought you were going somewhere else first, which I thought you're going to the killing of Bob, in which he kind of does like the Kane head tilt.
Interesting. Maybe it's Vince that's the big Halloween fan.
I believe, honestly, which you'll hate this even more, it was Jim Cornette that told Glenn Jacobs to, you know, base himself a lot on Michael Myers.
Yeah, but you know, Mark did that sit up for years.
Right.
Which is 100% is.
It's either him or somebody like Bruce Pritchard that was like, hey, you should do this, you know. But that is definitely 100% lifted from Halloween. There's no way it's not.
Look, man, there's 100 reasons to hate Jim Cornette, which we won't get into here. But there's a bunch of reasons to like that dude in wrestling terms too. And him telling Glenn Jacobs to do that shit makes total sense, and it's why Cornette was good at what he did at a certain time.
Yeah, I'm almost 100% positive of that. And, you know, I agree, you know, not to get off on a wrestling thing, but, like, I can filter out all the stuff that people don't like about Jim Cornette, and I could, like, listen to him talk about something that, like, makes sense, and I'm just like, he has, like, these little nuggets of knowledge, you know, hidden in all that stuff, and some of it is just so amazing. And, you know, you just have to have a filter and patience, you know, which I have, and a lot of people do not have.
Dude, so here's my thing with all that, and I think you and I are very much the same in that shit. And I think part of it comes from how long we've liked the shit we like and how old we are, is I absolutely separate some of that shit from who these people are. And, like, it's the art and the artist thing.
Right.
And I can respect that there's, like, that's part of what always made wrestling really fucking cool was the people who were involved in it understood how to pick up from other pieces of culture and place it into wrestling.
Right. And like, if you like, I'm sure if you go back and you really research that, I'm 98% positive that Jim Cornette specifically told Glenn Jacobs to do Michael Myers. And
doesn't
like
surprise me.
The head tilt and stuff, that's where I thought you were going, is when he kills Bob, he does that little weird kind of like, you know, like he's looking at his work, sort of thing. I mean, there's so many amazing shots in here, you know. Like when this movie is good, and this is why people love it. Like when it's good, it's great. And like the little things, like we said, and you know, there's a list of things that are wrong with it that we'll get to, but the great stuff outweighs the bad stuff.
100%. And right now we're going to get to everything that's wrong with Halloween.
Okay.
So,
well, I know you have a list, and I just want to get right off the rip a couple things.
Okay.
One, I hate that, like I already said, I hate the kind of like the timeline sort of, you know, and like I don't really hate it, but it's like, you know, like if it's October and you're in Ohio, you know, it's getting dark pretty early.
Right.
So I don't hate it, but I don't like it. But what I do hate is when he escapes, the way the window breaks when he hits it with his palm. I hate that.
Yeah, he's got to have a loaded palm. There's got to be something in there that broke that window, because a palm slap ain't breaking a window like that.
Right. So I hate that, and I don't really hate it, but you know, John Carpenter sticks with this like he's just supposed to be mindless, and he's a mindless killer, and you know that's what he thinks went wrong in part 2 when he does the sister thing. But like, is he really mindless? Because a lot of this shit seems pretty premeditated. You know, he's like following the same group of girls around all fucking day. You know, like,
meditated, yeah.
And like he has plenty of opportunities to kill, and he doesn't. And then he kills them later. Like he lets Bob and Linda fuck, and then he kills them both later. And like, you know, who knows how long? You know, he's watching them make out on the couch, and then they move rooms and take a fucking jack-o'-lantern with them, and they're moving all over this house, and he just lets them be for a while.
Hey,
you know, little things like that, you know, kind of bother me about it. I don't hate them, you know, like it's just like little. The more you watch the movie, you notice more things, and like one other thing that kind of bothers me is is this weird hardware store that also sells Halloween costumes, like are they under like like restricted COVID hours or what? Because it's like 5 p.m. and the place is closed and broken into.
Oh, dude, it's
on a weekday.
It's worse than that. So like, Mike had time to stalk Lori and go to an elementary school, steal a tombstone, drive all over the place. Then they pull up to the hardware store at a point where like the alarm's still going off. Has that fucking alarm been going off all day? Like, what's going on?
And he already had the mask on when he drives by them earlier in the day. So that alarm had to have been going off for quite some time. If he is the one that stole it, I guess, you know, he's never been proven as the culprit. But one would assume that it was Michael Myers that robbed that hardware Halloween store.
You would assume that, but I don't know. He never used any rope, and that was the thing.
That's what I was gonna say. He didn't use the rope, so it could have just been some kids, like Chief Brackett said, or Sheriff Brackett said. But
yeah,
I'll let you get to your list. Like my big things was like how he breaks the window, some of the timeline stuff, how, you know, John Carpenter claims it's all mindless, but there's a lot of premeditation going on. You know, like he follows the little kid around, you know, he follows the girls when they're walking home from school. He like follows them to the fucking hardware store. He follows them to where they're babysitting. Like he hides in the bushes. He has so many opportunities to just mindlessly kill all these people and not think about it, you know, and like it seems very premeditated to me.
Yeah, there's a lot of calculated moves.
A lot of calculated moves. And yeah, and another thing, now in retrospect, when you watch those TV scenes, if you can get your hands on the TV version, those scenes do fucking nothing for the movie pretty much, like nothing at all. So that kind of bothers me now. Like when I watched them today, like the big thing was driving home the sister storyline, and they give him a middle name in one scene for fucking God knows why. But yeah, other than that, those scenes they really do nothing. But there's a lot of time, these girls get off school, and it seems like there's a lot of time to kill before the babysitting shift, and it's light out the whole time. So
dude, they get off school, and let's talk about this. And this is on my list, but it's down my list, but I'm gonna talk about it now. They get off school. From the time they get off school, she's at school and thinks she sees Mike looking at her through the fucking windows at school, right?
Right.
Then there's that weird scene where he drives past them and there's no way he hears what Annie says.
Speed kills.
Yeah. And he stops, and then
he's not even driving that fast either, by the way.
No, slow as shit. Slow, like parade speed. There's that. Then there's him popping out behind the bushes. Like, there's all these scenes where Laurie sees Michael Myers in this fucking jumpsuit and the mask. And then when she gets home, she sees him in the fucking laundry outside. How does she not call the police right the fuck right then?
I think she thinks she's having hallucinations. That's got to be the only explanation, right?
I guess. I could tell you this. If I saw, and I'm like a grown-ass man, but if I saw somebody that I felt probably by that point had been stalking me all day, and I looked out the window that's right beside me right now, and I saw that motherfucker in my backyard, I'm not a cop caller, but I might call somebody and be like, look, man, there's been a dude following me all day. It's kind of weird. Could you swing by?
Yeah, I agree. So like little things like that kind of, if you really analyze the movie, you can find some things wrong with it, but I mean, it's still great. Let's get to the rest of your list though, because I'm very interested.
The opening scene, which I've already discussed, I think is great cinema. There's a point where Child Mike is looking through the window, right?
Uh-huh.
And he sees his sister making out with this dude on the couch. From the time dude is making out with her on the couch.
Oh, yeah, they're all done. They're all cleaned up.
1 minute and 8 seconds. Look, man, I might not be the world's greatest lover, but I have never been done in 1 minute and 8 seconds.
Which, through modern eyes, you could say, like, maybe he got a phone call. It was an emergency. He had to go. They didn't have cell phones in 1978, so.
That is, and it's a tracking shot. It's not like some weird like movie magic time passed. That's 1 minute and 8 seconds of real time from the time they get off the couch downstairs to him going upstairs, them doing whatever they did, and him being like, all right, peace out. I'll see you.
And he's a young teenage boy, like you'd think you would have a little bit more in him than that. So
yeah, especially working as hard as it seems that he was to get to the goal there.
Right. Yeah. John Carpenter didn't think that one through, or maybe that was like a little inside joke. I don't know. Maybe it's like some kind of weird personal thing that he experienced in his teenage years. I mean, I don't know.
Now you're putting shit on John Carpenter that we don't know about. That's speculation.
Hey man, it's his movie. purely speculation, but I don't know.
It had to come from somewhere.
Exactly.
So then in that same sequence, there's the pull-out shot after the parents come home.
And they just stand there frozen forever.
Yeah, and I get like in my heart and in my love for this movie, I go, oh, well, it's like artistic, right? Like it's like a freeze frame, like in a play or something.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, but like it doesn't play like that in the movie. It just plays real weird and awkward. But this movie
why that's fresh in my mind is because I'd never noticed it until I watched it today, and I was like, this is uncomfortably long for them to just say Michael and just stare at him. They don't grab the knife. They don't do nothing.
He's just holding it in a fucking clown outfit while his parents are like, Michael.
And that's it. They just stand there frozen. So yeah, that is a little weird. I noticed it today for the first time actually.
But here's the thing. Any one of these, it's a testament to how good this movie is.
Yeah, I agree.
Everybody still regards this movie as fucking amazing, like universally. And there's shit like that in this movie that would tank other movies.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
The next thing is when they get to Smith's Grove, right? And it's Donald Pleasance and the nurse driving up, and then Mike breaks the fucking window. And
another thing with my chronological problems, like, are they picking this fucking guy up at midnight? Like, what time is it?
Right.
It seems like a morning gig to me, like this seems like a morning job, to go get this kid. I would think it would be, like this would be like a 9:30 a.m. sort of job.
Right. But Mike steals this car. He's been in this institution since he was a child. And he drives the car just fine. Like
I will give them credit though. They do say they do acknowledge that he shouldn't know how to drive in the movie.
I'm wasting my time. Sam Haddonfield is 150 miles away from here. Now, for God's sakes, he can't drive a car. He was doing very well last night. Maybe someone around here gave him lessons.
They do. Like Loomis says maybe somebody taught him. But I'll say this. I stole my mom's car when I was 12, and I sucked at driving.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. But, it's like the suspension of disbelief thing, Like, you just gotta let it roll. But I agree that is a glaring plot hole.
Yeah. The next thing is very minor. But when they're at the high school, there's a sign at the high school that's like buried in bushes and overgrowth, which like, man, they need to get the fucking janitorial team on some fucking outdoor maintenance at that high school. That it says tickets on sale, but it does not say for what. It's just tickets are on sale.
Maybe the homecoming dance. I don't know.
It's up in the air. There's just some tickets on sale. The next thing for me is that she has seen Michael Myers herself at least 3 times, right? She saw him stalking her when she was in the classroom. She saw him behind the bushes, and she saw him in the laundry. But when Tommy says that he saw the boogeyman, she's like, oh no, that can't be possible.
Yeah.
Lori, the boogeyman is outside. Look.
Tommy, there's nobody outside. Go watch TV.
In which, that whole, Michael Myers he's playing it real loose, like just walking all the way around, up the steps, through the front door, like carrying the body. Yeah, there is a lot that is actually wrong with this movie, but it's still great. Agreed.
The next thing would be, so you've got Loomis and the groundskeeper of the...
Okay, this is insane to me. That he carries a fucking he steals the gravestone, never explained.
And they act like that's the groundskeeper's like these fucking kids or whatever. Like, did you ever steal a tombstone? Because I did some wild shit as a kid, but I never stole a tombstone from anywhere.
No, I never did that. I did some weird things on a graveyard a couple times, but no stealing a tombstone.
Nope, not one. Never stole one. Also, they're very fucking heavy.
Yeah, I mean, and Michael Myers is known for his strength in later sequels, but Michael Myers is kind of a skinny little bitch in part 1.
Sure is.
I don't know that he could be lifting that.
They didn't have a weight room at the fucking sanitarium. Like, he wasn't
just driver's ed.
Yeah, he wasn't in the yard lifting. The next thing for me is, so they go to the old Myers house, right? And there's a bunch of people would cite the conveniently placed jump scare where the window breaks for no reason. Is that bullshit? Sure. You know what's bigger bullshit though? The dead dog that they say is still warm. At what point did Mike kill this fucking dog? Because did he have it under a heat lamp? That dog would have been cold as ice by nighttime, depending on any time during the day in which he killed that fucking dog.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he grabbed a quick meal before babysitting duty. I don't know, Also, never really explained the dog thing. You know, and he has killed a few dogs throughout the franchise.
Does not like dogs.
Yeah. So, yeah, okay. I didn't pick up on that one when I watched it today, but I'm with you on that.
Next thing is Laurie and Tommy are running down the shit they're going to do on Halloween night.
A lot of shit. They got a lot planned.
Big plans for Halloween. Big agenda. One of them is making a jack-o'-lantern. Now, growing up in the Midwest, I've made many jack-o'-lanterns. Never once have I made one on Halloween.
No, you got to make it mid-October at the latest.
Yeah,
get it out there.
That thing's dying by Halloween.
It's done by Halloween. You take it out the next day.
Yeah, goes to the curb if somebody hasn't smashed it already. So, like, yeah, I guess that's his Thanksgiving pumpkin.
Coming over tonight?
Same time, same place.
Can we make jack-o'-lanterns? Sure. Can we watch the monster movies?
Sure.
Can you read to me? Can we make popcorn?
Sure.
Yeah, they're going to carve a jack-o'-lantern. They're going to watch a whole movie. They're going to read comic books and something else, like make popcorn or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's like, are you going to read to me, or are you going to do this, or are we going to do that?
And his parents don't, like, he's bad at hiding shit. Like, don't hide shit under the couch. Like, your parents are going to vacuum there at some point. Hide your shit in, like, your room someplace. Tommy's not good at hiding shit. I think that's proven in this movie.
To be fair, he is at babysitting age. You know, he's being babysat.
That's true. He hasn't figured shit out yet. So, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, I'm sure it's one of yours, and it's obviously someone at WWE's favorite, be it Pritchard or Cornette, is the scene where Bob, who should have been Dennis Quaid, by the way.
That's crazy because that's who she was dating in real life, PJ Souls.
Yeah, and he was up for the role, and for one reason, it was like a scheduling conflict or something. He ended up not being Bob. But Bob is pinned to the wall by Mike, and there's that iconic scene of Mike tilting his head, which is great for creating the character of Michael Myers and bringing like weird humanity to it. But like, as big as that fucking butcher knife is, it would never pin a person to a wall and stick them there. Like,
no.
Physically impossible.
Well, you know, suspension of disbelief. I keep going back to it, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of suspension of disbelief. Again, all of these things, I love this movie. They all are a testament to how good it is.
And some of them, I think he sacrifices logic for a shot or a moment, you know?
And he's not wrong in any one of them because they all pay off. Like, you've got to really be like analyzing the movie to piece this shit together, or you just don't like horror movies and you're like, oh, well, this is why this movie's no good.
Right. You're an asshole.
Correct. So the other one for me, and this is the biggest one for me, and it's one that I think you can relate to, even more than the knife pinning him to the wall, is like, so Laurie, she's in the closet and Mike comes for her and she runs and she goes over the railing and down the staircase, right? Like, she's all ass over tea kettle and lands on the steps. She's less fucked up than you were when Lufisto dumped you on the bleachers.
Yeah, I mean, suspension of disbelief, man, you know? Like, I mean, this is something that happens to, like, every final girl in every horror movie after this, though, too. You know, like, they take some kind of big fucking tumble or something, and they're just ready to go. You know, I guess it's the adrenaline. I don't know. Yeah, that's a big one. And just like I said, the meditation, the premeditation or whatever, like, even when, you know, she thinks she's safe and he's just like, she's walking all slow and he does the sit up and he's, you know, like, doesn't get to her at any sense of urgency before that, you know?
Right. And I mean, after that, there's that moment where there's no chance that Mike made it to where they were for that, like, jump scare. And I don't even care about that either. It was good cinema. Like, it just makes sense. But, like, there's, like, Laurie Strode she's presented as way more of a badass than you would expect a teenage babysitter to be. And
I think that's, that's honestly why that, I guess, gimmick of the final girl is born based on, if you want to put it in wrestling terms, like she's booked pretty strong, and
she is. Yeah.
She stands out. And I think that's why it becomes kind of like an ongoing thing in horror movies.
And you're absolutely right. The final girl idea, which has continued since then from 78 until right now in 2020, with total, like, complete movies being made about it, was born with Jamie Lee Curtis in this movie. And there's a lot of ideas from different scholars and different people who have analyzed this movie. In my opinion, sometimes overanalyzed this movie, where there's like the whole final girl thing that is born from here, which is real. Like, that was picked up through films ongoing from this point, and also is kind of shared with I Spit on Your Grave a little bit. But there's also ideas, like, there's all of these ideas that are pushed through of, like, I've read things where people talk about, like, how it's metaphor for Muslim faith, and that, like, if women aren't kept pure, then there's this whole
Mustafa Akkad, man. Mustafa Akkad, maybe. Maybe he was making his Muslim faith movie here.
Right. Well, there's that, except, John wrote it over a 6-pack in a couple of weeks or whatever. So
I know. I was just trying to blow some people's mind there with that connection.
I'm with you. I mean, there's a lot of takes that you can have on this movie, but I think most of those takes have been blown up by John Carpenter, where he was like, man, that shit might be true, but I promise you that wasn't what I was writing when I wrote this movie.
Yeah, I think everyone is giving it, almost over credits him for how great this movie is when it's all kind of a fluke. Because he said, there was nothing to the purity, or that's why she's the only one that survives. He said it was just like there was nothing to it. It was just all how he wrote the character. And there wasn't like this big long vision. And to an extent, like I can kind of see that, because there's a lot of times in wrestling where like something pays off and something happens and everyone's like, man, I can't believe you saw that all those months ago. And like a lot of times it's just a coincidence, and like it just works out that way. But people want to be like, man, you're like, that was so smart. Like, that made so much sense. Like, I never saw it coming that way. And then, like, a lot of the times it's like, well, neither did I. It just kind of worked out. And there's other times where things don't work out. And so that's why I do believe that, like, he was just solely, like, devoted to the project. And he had no, like, long-term vision for any of this.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think anything like that, any, like, deeper thought into this, is totally an afterthought. It's something that people have read into the end product based on what it was, but it certainly wasn't something that John Carpenter planned.
And, I think that's, that's probably a part of just like our almost like revisionist culture, where people want to go back and they want to analyze everything that's happened in time and then like, like find out why and think it meant this or think it meant that. Like, I think, it's just how culture is like people don't want to accept that he didn't have a plan,
Yeah, you want things to be more than they are.
Right.
And that's human nature. So my last thing that's wrong with this movie, and this might be the most egregious thing in the whole fucking movie, is in the credits and only exists in the credits. So Mike is age 6 credited at the beginning of the movie when he's a child and commits his first murder. In the credits, it cites Mike age 6 played by, and then Mike age 23 played by.
Oh, but he's supposed to be 21, I thought.
Yeah, there's only 15 years that pass. John Carpenter, great at making movies, bad at math.
That's funny.
Yeah. So there's one last thing we need to touch on, and we did a little bit earlier, but it, to me, is the wildest thing in the lore of Halloween, and that is the story of Mustafa Akkad himself.
Let's get into it. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know that much about him, so.
So Mustafa Akkad, his background is kind of muddy to look it up. He clearly had money in some way. He absolutely wanted to make a movie based on his Muslim faith, about Muhammad, that presented him in a way that he felt was appropriate, much different than the way that, say, South Park presented him. And this culminated in the end in 2005 with Mustafa Akkad being killed by Al-Qaeda in a bombing.
Yeah, like that's the one thing I do know about him, which is crazy.
At the Grand Hyatt Hotel in Amman, Jordan, Mustafa Akkad died in 2005 by Al-Qaeda.
That's insane. That's insane.
I don't even know what to say about that.
And I mean, like, you know, I know it sounds like crazy because, like, and it's kind of comparable to COVID-19. Like, and just stick with me here on this. Like, and I know that this doesn't apply to everybody, but like, it's like you hear about COVID-19 and it's this crazy thing, but like, you don't really know anybody that has it, you know, but like, you know, it's out there. And like, Al-Qaeda is kind of the same thing. It's like, yeah, I know Al-Qaeda's out there, but like, you don't really know anybody by name that's been killed by Al-Qaeda except for Mustafa Akkad.
Yeah. Like, I understand that, like, Al-Qaeda was behind World Trade Center and there are so many people.
Right, but I didn't know any of those people. You know, that's
one.
Like what I'm saying, you know? So it's like,
not one.
And I don't mean to be insensitive when saying that, but it's just like one of those things that's just kind of like, I know it's there, you know, I know it's out there, but it's like, I don't know, you know, like I don't know anybody that it's impacted. And then, you know, it's impacted the Halloween franchise.
And to me, as a non-religious person, right? Like, I'm not anti-religion. I'm in the same boat. Like, it just, I mean, I just like, I don't really get into it, you know, like, it's not my thing, but I appreciate that it is other people's things. It's just like religion and politics, I just kind of try to stay out of. For me, I might be a little more outspoken in politics, but either way, like, for religion, for me, I used to be a Satanist. I'm always an atheist, and I don't care if you believe in something else.
Right.
To me, the idea that a dude who his goal was to make some movies about Muhammad was killed by Al-Qaeda is just some irony that I can't get over.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't understand. And I think it's like there's a moral there. Related to Halloween.
Don't make horror movies for God.
I guess.
For your God. To exploit your God for profit.
Or it turns out bad for you by a religious extremist who I'm sure the people who bombed that hotel didn't like do it because they knew Mustafa Akkad was there, or I assume they didn't. I think it was probably just, you know, one of those things that happens.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah, but boy, it's just, when I read that, of all of the things, that's never the thing I expected to read about, like, because I've always seen the name Mustafa Akkad at the beginning of like every Halloween movie, and I've never associated it with anything like that. To me, it was just always like, exactly. There's that dude who made Halloween.
There's that weird name. I don't know, like all the other weird names besides John Carpenter, you know, like that you see in the credits.
Yeah, it's wild to me that that's the way that dude's life came to an end, and that's part of the lore of the Halloween franchise at this point, is that like Al-Qaeda killed Mustafa Akkad. That's fucking wild.
I don't know. I don't think we can go anywhere else from there.
I don't know that there is anywhere else to go. I mean, that's kind of.
I think that's a good way to end it. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not trying to laugh, but I mean, it's just crazy.
Me too. This is not laughter at the death of a man. It's laughter at the absurdity of the idea of what happened.
It's shocking. Yeah, it's just shocking.
Yeah, it really is. And like, so I guess to sum it up for me, like, the movie Halloween is important on a lot of levels. And I think that everyone involved played a role in what was to come for horror movies. Not just because they were in this, but because of how far-reaching everything goes with what John Carpenter does, with what Jamie Lee Curtis ends up doing, with what many of the other cast members end up doing going forward, and with what Mustafa Akkad pushes forward with the Halloween franchise, which, you know, there's been a lot of Friday the 13th. There's been a lot of Nightmare on Elm Streets. There's been a few Hellraisers, and there's been a few Texas Chainsaws. But Halloween is the one. It's like the franchise that just keeps going despite everything.
And I think, you know, you're talking about how important it is and all that. You have to also mention how important the success of it is, which almost like throws gasoline on the fire of horror movies for the 80s.
For sure. And the 90s and the 2000s. It's like there every time horror needs a booster.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it really set the whole thing off, you know, like the whole slasher genre really drove, you know, these other movie studios and producers to try to find their Michael Myers. And, you know, we got Freddy Krueger, we got Jason Voorhees, we got all these iconic people. And I credit that to the success of this movie.
I do too. And, you know, what's crazy is some of those other franchises had, in ways, more commercial success. I don't know that anything was more commercial in the 80s than Freddy Krueger. It was like Freddy Krueger and Hulk Hogan when you think of the 80s. Is like those were the things.
Yeah, he
that,
became more of like a pop culture icon.
Yeah, and Michael Myers didn't become that. But Michael Myers was the thing that maybe actually scared you. Because for me as a kid, like, I rationalized horror movies where, like, so Jason Voorhees was scary, right? But he was only so scary because there was, like, that supernatural element of, like, you know, oh, he died as a kid, and then the first movie was his mom, but then later it's him, and he's like a hillbilly, and then it's him with the mask, and then it's whatever the lore is, right? And Freddy was like he killed you in your dreams. And that's not real. But a guy can escape from a mental institution and kill people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was the scary part about Halloween, was that element of reality that existed in it. That with the rest of what John Carpenter does for the rest of his career, that's not part of it, you know? Like, there's always some sort of supernatural or some sort of, like, other piece to it. But this marks a point where John Carpenter was really kind of trying to, as much as, like, Mike disappears at the end of it and there's that, like, the shape piece of it, there's still the idea that it's just a lunatic escape from a mental institute. That, to me, always hit home as, like, oh, shit, that could be real. Like, there's real mental institutions and there's real killers that got off on a technicality and are there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that's probably what led to it connecting with so many people, you know, especially in the late 70s, and, you know, just the whole idea of it, you know, and the fear. And you're right, he is different than all the other kind of, like, you know, heavy hitter horror icons. And I think that's why, because the kind of the stories of the other ones get kind of fucked up when they're trying to make it make sense after they've made it already, But Michael Myers just starts off as a guy that escaped a mental institution who killed somebody when he was 6. There's it's a really bare bones story that people can be scared of.
Yeah, and sometimes that's the best. Sometimes the simplest story is the best story you can tell. And I think that's the testament to Halloween and John Carpenter.
Yeah, and there's probably no better way to wrap it up, honestly, because I know we kind of goofed on the movie a little bit, but it is probably one of the most important horror movies of all time, if not the most important horror movie of all time, in my opinion. If you have not watched it for whatever reason and you're listening to it, you need to watch it. And I think everybody in the world needs to see Halloween at least once.
I agree. And like you said, it's on Shudder right now. So if nothing else, if somehow you haven't seen Halloween, get yourself your free, I think it's a 7-day trial to Shudder. But watch this and really, we're rolling up. It's about to be August. By the time this releases, it'll probably be we'll be into the beginning of August. Halloween's around the corner. Take some time, watch this movie. In the coming months, there's going to be some other episodes of this show. Some stuff I know is coming up is I'm doing The Thing, which is another John Carpenter movie. I'm doing The Beyond. And then at some point in the not so distant future, you and I are going to talk about some more Halloween movies, John.
Am I the super fantastic resident Halloween expert at this point?
You are. I would like to do the whole series.
I'm in, because I told you in person when we did the John Carpenter one, it was such a relief to be able to talk about something other than wrestling, which is all I ever get asked to talk about.
Right.
A lot of people probably don't even know that I love these iconic horror movies and these cult classic movies from the 80s. And I would 100% do the entire Halloween franchise with you. I'll even do the Rob Zombie part H2.
I think the Rob Zombie ones will actually be fun because we can kind of shit on them a little bit.
I don't hate them as much as some people. I appreciate what he tried to do, but I understand that they are not this movie, and they're not some of the sequels either.
That's very true. Here's my thing, and I'm with you to a point. That first movie, when we cover it, there are a world full of things I love about that movie. I have a hard time finding things about the second movie I like a lot.
Right.
But the first movie, I understand what he was trying to do. I really do. But I think here's my thing, and this is honestly kind of a quote from you that I've heard you say is no matter how bad a Halloween movie is, I'm still kind of excited about it because it's a Halloween movie.
Right.
And I like that franchise.
It's just how people get excited about a new Batman movie or a superhero movie or anything else. To some people, these horror guys, these heavy hitter horror icons are like superheroes to some people. And a lot of people, and that's why there's such a large kind of horror community. And, you see these conventions all over the world and everything else. It's no different than how people are connected to superheroes. And I mean, it sounds kind of fucked up because you're connected to these killers or whatever, but it's they are like superheroes in a way to a lot of people. And, that's just kind of how I look at it. If the story's all fucked up, like Friday the 13th, where it's a girl with telekinetic powers, I'll still watch it, because it's just it's just another take on, a story that everybody knows how it's going to go.
And you cited my least favorite Friday the 13th.
It's my least favorite too, and that's why I said it though. It's my least favorite too, and I hate that one, but I'll still watch it if it's on TV or I'll put it on if I'm I'm gonna watch all the Friday the 13th. That's my least favorite, but I can still there's still things that I enjoy about it because it's that iconic character. Same thing with we'll say Halloween Part 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. There's a lot that's fucking sucks about that movie, but I will still watch it and I will still find things to enjoy about it.
And you know what? I'm going to end this episode with this. So a little peek behind the curtain is I've been talking to John about doing these episodes for a while now. The other person I was talking to about doing some of these was my friend Tom. And unfortunately, Tom just passed away unexpectedly. And Tom was on this show before in its old format. There was an episode with him just talking about him being a fan of a lot of different things. And then he did one of the earliest episodes of this format where we're talking about horror movies, where he and I talked about George Romero and about Dawn of the Dead. And he was going to be part of talking about Halloween 6, where I was going to have him and John both on this because he loved that movie and he loved how much it didn't make sense. And that's unfortunately not something that can happen now. He was also going to do a whole episode on Scream, which he knew shit about Scream that I don't even understand how he knew. And I can only hope that when I cover that movie, I do it justice. But this episode is dedicated to Tom Troll. He was a great dude, and he will be sorely, sorely fucking missed.
Yeah, I mean, I love Tom. I've known Tom for almost 20 years. I just saw him at Soy, Ohio. He has been around the wrestling community in Northeast Ohio forever. He's like pretty much a day one AIW guy. Used to come help, then just started buying tickets to support. Just a really good dude. I want to say like a year ago, him and I we ran into each other at a Joe Bob Briggs panel. He is, a guy like many people that are probably listening to this. He was a fan of so many different things involving pop culture, and he was a really good dude. And it really bums me out that we did not get to do that episode together. But Tom will be greatly, greatly missed by many people, especially in the wrestling community. And I just can't say that, there's a lot of people that you can say good things about, but it's kind of, like force-fed bullshit. Like Tom was a dude that was beloved by everybody. And, it really sucks that he's not here.
Yeah, dude, the thing I will say about Tom that I think sums him up the best for me is he loved what he loved so much that it was contagious. Like, it would make you love the shit he loved because of how much he loved it. And it is rare that there's someone that nobody has bad shit to say about, but literally no one has bad shit to say about Tom because there isn't. There's just not bad shit to say about him.
Exactly. So, I'm very proud to be on this episode dedicated to him. And, I will try to do Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers justice when we get to it. And maybe I'll jump in for Scream 2. I'm a big fan of Scream 1, 2, and 4. Not so much 3.
You don't like Jay and Silent Bob and Scream, John?
Hey, I mean, I understand it. I understand it for the time period, but it's just that I think that's the worst one. But we'll save that convo for another day.
To end this episode out, this has been Halloween. The next episode will be The Thing, also a John Carpenter movie. And John,